Go with another one of your questions here. It says, um, I think at a young age, kids do focus on outcomes. Like, outcomes get results. You get an A in class, you get praised, you get on honor roll. It's an outcome-based world. At the same time, if you've had emotional experiences in your life, especially as an adult, like you start to realize that like the material, the outcomes, it might not be the most important thing, but at a young age, when we're so um, we're so self-conscious, we're worried all the time. We feel like all eyes are on us. How do you help teach your players to be less outcome based focused, less self-conscious on results, again, getting back to it, I guess, just how do you keep them focused and not so worried on outcome?
I think what initially sparks my mind is when you said, they're kind of like ego driven. They're kind of focused on themselves and they're self-conscious, and they feel like everyone is like paying all the attention in the world to them and they're concerned about them. I think something that's interesting to do with people is to kind of like test the reality in that. It's like, well, is everyone in the world staring at you all the time in what you're doing? And I think oftentimes you hear the answer is no. But in sport, and especially like if you're in the box or you're the pitcher, it does feel like that. I think ultimately when it comes to it's this process over outcome approach. It's if I'm in the batter's box and I'm thinking about how am I going to go 4 for 4 today in my first at bat, like you're not in the moment. I think again it comes back to like, listen, I haven't met anyone who's like, if I'm in the batter's box and I'm thinking about going 5 for 5, that's going to help me perform. But if that's what works for you, sure. I find that hard to believe. So it's again stepping back and saying, is this approach helping me? First off. Now, when I think about how oftentimes it isn't the case, I think about a simple strategy in terms of like focusing on what is in your control and what is not. And so when I think about what are the controllables, it's, my intent, my attention, my attitude, myself, period. It's baseball, like hitting a ball that's coming at you 60 to 90, whatever miles per hour from that, like 60 feet, 6 inches. If I'm focused on hitting the ball over the center fielder's head and getting a double, like there's so many variables at play that we have no say over. Like once the ball's out of the pitcher's hand and I put a swing or don't put a swing on it, like we are no longer attached. So like think about it physically speaking. Once you swing and you drop the bat, like there's a ball floating in air through gravity based on the pitcher's exit speed from his hand and your swing on the ball. What part of the baseball you hit, what was the angle at which you hit the ball, and what's the wind like, and what's the temperature out? And there's so many things. Like what's the speed of the center fielder? Did you even hit it in that direction? Did you even hit the ball? If our focus goes to all those what ifs, it brings us to what we're dealing with now. Like all of this discomfort that I hear people disclose, and myself included, with the pandemic and the quarantine, however we want to think about it, we don't know, and that's uncomfortable for people. So if we continue to focus our attention on, well, I don't know when I'm going to go back to school. I don't know what my job's going to look like. I don't know. Why don't we just put our attention in things we do know about them? And what I do know is if my focus on seeing the ball and making a good swing on it based on like maybe my coach's approach or my individual approach that we work on, if I'm focused on seeing the ball, and let's say if it's a strike in a count where I'm attacking it, and if it's not, I take it, like all of a sudden you're removing so many other variables and you're just focused on an external thought. Like that's all it is. If I'm thinking about what is my mechanical cue, like what are my hips doing when this ball comes in to make sure that I can hit a ball to left field over the left fielder's head, like there's just a whole bunch of what ifs. And I think the simplest way to get back to the question and really clarify, it's what can I focus on and where can I focus my attention to put me in a good position to just make solid contact.
Yeah, it's and I guess it kind of goes back to you know, you can go 5 for 5, but maybe you had 3 swinging bunts and 2 bloops, and the other kid went 0 for 4 and he smoked 2 or 3 of them right at a guy. At him.
Exactly.
And it's like, can you still go home and be happy that you were able to focus and get a good swing on a baseball and just be happy that things are working out for you? And you'll get your bloop hit. Everybody does. But, you know, it's like,
Yeah, absolutely. When
yeah,
I was playing, like
I'm,
I wouldn't feel good if I hit a line out to left field, but like if I got a swinging bunt or a bloop over third base, like that was cool because no one told me like averages and everything. I hope you had this in because I think this could be valuable. When I was thinking about my recruiting process, I had people tell me if you don't hit this batting average mark, you're not going to play forward. And I didn't play forward and I didn't hit that 270 mark, but I think if no one told me that, I probably would have hit the 370 mark. Like if someone had told me like, "Hey, John, you don't have to hit 370 to be a good baseball player," I think that would have opened up my career. And one, shame on me for not realizing that or seeking out, resources before now. But honestly, I think that's where the power comes for individual players and for coaches. It's like if you're telling a kid that you want him to hit 350 and you want his on base percentage to be X and that these are the two most important things, you're really setting kids up to be really stressed out and not enjoy the game.
yeah. Because that's really what it is. It's like if you're not having fun, like you're out here so focused on going 5 for 5, it's like, what are you doing out here? Like
Yeah.
baseball, well, I always say, you know, baseball is not a metaphor for life. Life is a metaphor for baseball. But,
Wow.
um, you know,
That's good.
well, it's the same thing. It's like, through my playing career, it's like, it's funny. Like I got a lot of friends in baseball, but at the same time, I joke, like I hate baseball players, you know,
Yeah.
but the reason I like baseball is just because of how beautiful and perfect the game is in relationship to handling life. Like, you know, it's,
Mm-hmm.
you can be working your butt off and not be getting results. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you can have a lucky day, you know. Um,
Yeah, and
like
a surgeon isn't thinking about I need to have this successful surgery or like I don't know, like
well,
no
no,
one thinks
but
about outcomes in the real world when it comes to like a performance in the moment. Like a doctor talking to a client or like a surgeon performing a surgery, I don't think the thought process is I need to do this to be successful. It's more of like in the moment, like this person's life's on the line and I'm just going to do it.
and that's the thing. Like
I'm in a surgery room,
you're
but
in the moment able to do your thing. But like getting back to the metaphor for baseball, it's like somebody had to make sure that that scalpel was created correctly somewhere. You know, the nurse in the room
mhm,
had to be on point with your
yep.
directions. That's the sack bunt. That's hitting a runner over. You know what I mean? Like,
Hmm.
but you're right. Like you focus on your job, but the team is working like clockwork around you. You know,
Yeah.
if you get too outcome focused, you're not going to realize that you don't really have that much influence on the outcome. You just have to focus on you doing the best you can do in that moment. And if everybody else is clicking, then the outcome presents itself, you know. And I think like coaches get too outcome based focus. I hate it because
100%.
I'm trying to build a program right now where I'm coaching. I did high school for a long time. And then when I got down here, the first job I found was a middle school coaching job. And, I liked it. And then when I came over to the school I'm at right now, I'm still doing middle school. Um, but I'm not outcome based at all. Like, you know, I don't care about wins and losses right now. I care about just getting kids in our neighborhood to play baseball because we're lower socioeconomic. I put it on Twitter the other day. I saw a statistic. Households that make over $100,000 a year, they're 75% of their kids play sports. Households that are under 30, I think it's like 32% of their kids play sports. So it just
Mm.
shows you like we have to do something to bridge that gap. Um, and so we're trying to do after school programs. I'm trying to find a bunch of cheap picnic tables so we can do like homework help first. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Spend an hour on homework help. And then it's like, all right, now let's split up. Let's get into stations. Let's do some running. Let's do some games, you know, so
Yeah.
we'll see. But I mean, I know it's a big old tangent, but
All good.
it shows you how that whole outcome based mentality doesn't necessarily disappear with age, you know,
No, it doesn't.
work through.
It,
So,
it doesn't.
all right, I got a good question here for you. So You were talking earlier about how you asked your kids questions about like how they feeling today, kind of like performance, and mental and behavioral scores between, I think you said like 1 and 10 or something.
Yeah.
And if that's data that you collect, have you started looking into any of the analytics programs, not necessarily on the physical side?
Mm,
Here at the middle school level, we do analytics on the questions you were kind of talking about, like how well did you eat today? How many hours of sleep did you have? How do you feel? Like, what is your
right.
readiness score? Do you see analytics starting to be a part of your job field? And do you feel like you are finding success by tracking some behavioral data for your clients?
That's a really, really, really cool question. It's interesting because I was listening to Andy McKay, and he's the director of player development with the Seattle Mariners. He was on one of these virtual calls, and someone asked him, he's like, how do you measure the mental game? And he was like, performance. And I was like, well, yeah, that's a good response, because like if the mental game's working well, you're performing to the best of your abilities, and that's a really great answer by him. I haven't really found a specific method or thing to track. What I will say is something that we experimented with before the outbreak of the pandemic and being told to stay safe at home. We started implementing some meditation into our practices. We used it as like a warm up. Essentially, we'd have like a 30-minute session before the physical practice started, where we'd spend like 10 to 15 minutes talking about a mental game component, and then we would do like another 15-minute meditation. And what I did is, before the meditation and before the classroom session or discussion, I would have them stare at a piece of my shirt. So for example, like this tee, I would say stare at the top left corner of my tee for 30 seconds. And they'd do it. And then I would say, okay, 30 seconds is over. 0 to 100, what was your ability to focus? And then they'd stop. I'd do the 15-minute classroom session, and then we'd do a meditation. And the meditation would be geared towards getting them in the present moment. And then after that meditation, I would have them do it again. And not only did the number of the ability to focus on the 0 to 100 scale go up after, but from week to week, the average team score went up week by week by week. And we did that 5 weeks in a row. So that was just simple, like tracking and getting assessments from, player reports, like self-reported data. And I think that can be really critical. I think really there's no TrackMan, there's no Rapsodo, there's no blast motion for the mental game, but it's what's working well for the individual, what's not. So if one of those players said to me, hey, this meditation isn't working, and then I showed them their report, I'd be like, hey, so did you make these numbers up? Because if you did, like, I want you to be honest with me, one. Or it's like, well, this is what you're showing me. Is it that meditation's uncomfortable and it's actually helping you? And that's a good way to have a conversation there.
That was the problem I had with some of the data that we collected for the middle schoolers too, is I found out some of my questions were too abstract for them.
Sure.
When you hop on the bus before practice and you say like, hey, what's your readiness score, 1 through 5? Like you get everything from like 5, just like, the pure middle school
Yep.
overconfidence, to the goofy kids like 3.978. I'm like, shut up,
Yeah.
uh,
So like the
but
way we defined focus, and like I had to have a conversation with our guys, because before the first week I did it, or during the first week, the focus score, like they were saying like 95, 99. I'm like, you're telling me that you had 0 to 1 distractions for 30 seconds. And we know like the individual's ability to just pay attention to one singular topic for anything is like 5 seconds, 3 seconds. So 30 seconds of staring at something without one distraction coming into your mind. I'm like, hold on, guys, let's put a break to this. I'm like, be realistic here. Like, let's stare at this for 30 seconds. What is your score before and after? And then once we had that conversation, there was a lot more clarity to it. So I totally hear you on the readiness scale too.
that's where I had to get into more like objective data where it was like, instead of being like score of like 1 to 10, like how well did you eat last night, it turned into how many glasses of water did you drink today.
Yeah, exactly. Making it
How
objective.
many, how many items of your food would be considered overly salty, overly sugary, you know what I mean? So I tried to make it more objective, and we're still trying to figure out what we want to do with the data. You know what I'm saying? It's like you collect it and then you're kind of like, okay, now what? And I guess the first thing we were trying to do is like, is there any correlation between performance and behavior and lifestyle and mental
Hmm.
readiness and stuff. But I guess
Yeah,
that's kind of what
sure.
everybody is in the analytics department right now. It's like they've done a great job getting the data. Now everybody's just trying to figure out what's the most effective way to use it. So
No doubt.